expanding? What kind of message would you give them?
Definitely, whenever you do a business, you want to solve a problem. And I think that's one of the main things you want to do. You always want to solve some problem. You want to do it more efficiently than what's being done now, and you want to do it in a way that you could prosper and make money. Because some industries, there's not that much wealth to be had, so to speak. So I tell people all the time, pick the right vertical, pick the right industry where there is a huge upside. So if you do make all the good decisions and you do the right things, the fruits of your labor will always be there. And then always don't give up. We could have gave up when we were doing the iPhone app at the time. iPhone apps really weren't that popular. Nobody knew about them. I was getting laughed at everywhere I went. I mean, people were laughing behind my back. I mean, I went with Nick to Venture Hive down in Miami, which was an incubator.
Yeah.
And I was telling him about the idea. Yeah, Susan. And at the time, I was a pretty successful guy. And I was going in there, and I was very confident. And they all laughed at me at Venture Hive. And I was like, wow, this is like amazing. And I was telling Nick, I was like, I hope I see Susan, because then I can tell her the company's worth 1.6 billion. And you remember that time you laughed me out of the office? And I always say, whoever gets the last laugh, that's the best one. Don't worry about the ones at the beginning. But I should have quit. I mean, there's no choice about it. All the signs were there saying, hey, you know what? We should give this thing up. But if you keep pushing, and you're not afraid to pivot and recalibrate, you have to be able to do that. If you just keep pushing and you keep banging your head against the wall, it's never going to change. But if you keep pushing and pivot a little, recalibrate a little, and keep going, eventually you're going to hit it. And it's not just me, it's anybody. If you have that mentality that you're not going to be stopped and you're willing to change, you're going to be a success. It's only a matter of time. That's what it comes down to.
One question.
Yeah, good.
When you're pivoting,
right,
what's the indicator it's time?
The data. If something's not working, that's everybody knows. Everybody knows in their heart when something's not working.
Right.
When it's not working, you can't be afraid to say, hey, I wrote this book and it's a beautiful book and let's just keep the story. No, you gotta rip the pages out and say, hey, we need a new story. This story's not working for whatever reason, and you can't be afraid to do that, because I think a lot of times people's egos and their pride gets in the way, and they're like, I wrote such a beautiful novel and it's unbelievable, and let's just keep doing this and keep doing this, and before you know it, they're bankrupt and they're out of money, and they're like, yeah, the market just wasn't with us, or they'll make excuses about stuff when they could have easily just said, hey, you know what, let's suck up the pride, let's transition a little, let's give it a shot, let's try it, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but at least we're trying new things and giving us a chance to succeed, versus trying the same thing and every month you're struggling, you don't have enough money, every year you're struggling, you don't have enough money. You got to make a change.
Nice. So now I open it up to the audience. You guys can ask questions. And he's here to share his knowledge. Speak up.
Okay, well, really good question. I want to know, what was that LinkedIn page with those 5 questions?
It's right. Go to my LinkedIn, Mr. Louis D. Spagnuolo, and I wrote a whole bunch of articles, and you'll see the title. It's called The 5 Golden Rules. You can search it, and it spells the whole thing out, and I actually explain them all, and I give examples of people that, say they have like a barrier to entry, and that's not really a barrier to entry, and that kind of made it, kind of entertaining, so to speak.
So how do you spell that last name?
My last name, S-P-H, S as in Sam, P as in Peter. My wife, you want to take over? I think she knows it by now. It only took 4 years, but we're getting there. S-P-H-E-N-U-O-L-O. Oh, yeah, it should pop up pretty quick. Super. Go ahead.
In the beginning of your career, how did you focus? I'm assuming there was multiple things that you thought were good ideas. How did you focus on one, and how did you double down on that good stuff?
The thing is, I always had great focus from being a young kid, because I had to grow up so fast. I didn't really have a childhood, so to speak. And I was just so determined to succeed that even to today, my family can tell you, once I have something in my head, it becomes like a 24-hour day obsession. Everybody complains, you gotta stop, you gotta take these good things. And I'm just so engulfed in it that I want to succeed so bad. And I always say that I have to be the foremost expert in this space. And that's always my goal. Whether it was digging graves, I wanted to know what was the best way to dig a 12-foot grave. And I would ask everybody in the cemetery, all the grave diggers, how do you do it? What's the secret? And I would get all that knowledge. And then once I had all that knowledge, I became the best grave digger. I could dig the graves faster than anyone. So I would always want to keep pushing, say, how do I become the best in this vertical, or this niche, or this industry? And then I would just have a laser focus on that. And I tell everybody in business, a lot of times I meet guys at events and whatever, and they carry shotguns with them. And they shoot the shotgun, and the pellets go everywhere. They cover the whole room, and they think, oh yeah, this is the way to go. And I said, I've never carried a shotgun in my life. I've always carried a sniper rifle, and I've always set my target on one thing, and that's the only target I want to hit. Because when you start trying to hit too many targets at once, you end up missing all. You know, and I'd rather come home humble and be like, okay, I caught one deer versus the guy that's trying to catch 10 deer. You know, but at least I know I'm coming home and I'm eating. And then after day by day, you know, week by week, you keep bringing home that one deer. Before you know it, you're doing pretty good. So that's what I would say.
Wanted to know, of course, with the many businesses that you've had, how do you approach analyzing competition?
Well, we study competition a lot. I mean, competitive analysis is super important. And usually what we do is we'll take a broad stroke initially and maybe study 30 companies per se. And then we analyze the 30 and we say, out of these 30, which one are the best? And we usually narrow it down to 10. And then once we have it at 10, we say, okay, who's really doing something special? Who's doing something disruptive? Who's gonna be the most difficult to overcome? And we usually get it down to say 5. And then once we have it down to 5, we'll say, okay, how do we make our offering better than all 5 of these? How do we price it more competitive than all 5 of these? And then what type of hook could we integrate that'll make us be distinct against these 5? So when the consumer comes to that page and wants that product, they'll say, okay, they have a great price, they have a great value, and they have this one interesting twist to their product that no one else does, and that's how we get that traction.
Questions?
Regarding AI, this week we've had some good stuff with Elon Musk going, AI could be his, our downfall and extinction of all mankind, and we got Zuckerberg on the other side that says, no, it's unresponsible for him to say that. It's more good on that side. Where do you fall on that?
We're never going to replace humans. That's not going to happen. But the way I give the analogy of AI, like back in the 1800s, there was this big gold rush, and everyone wanted to find gold. So what everyone would do is they would buy shovels and they would buy picks, and you'd have 300 guys, out somewhere in California, and they'd be digging a hole trying to find gold, and they'd be digging and digging and digging. Then all of a sudden, someone got really intelligent, and they invented the bulldozer. And the bulldozer came, and then they had the crane came, then the drill came, and all these things came. But what they didn't realize was you still need someone to drive that bulldozer, no matter what. You still need someone to operate that crane. You still need someone to operate all of that equipment. But that equipment helps you be more efficient. So instead of 300 guys with shovels, maybe you have 2 bulldozers. And that's the best analogy I could give for AI. AI does, an enormous amount using human power based on computers, but you're still always going to need someone behind there kind of directing it, so to speak. And I think what will happen is once AI becomes more mainstream, there'll be new industries that are created, because there'll be a new technology. And then a lot of people will aggregate to those new industries, and then it'll keep evolving. But things are going to change. I mean, you look at the travel industry. I remember growing up, there used to be travel agents. I don't even know if there's travel agents anymore. Payphones. I watch old movies. I'm like, wow, look at that person on the payphone. Do you believe that? you know what I mean? And another great example is growing up in Massachusetts. We used to have this company called Kodak Film.
Yeah.
And Kodak Film had like 90% market share. It was mind-boggling. I mean, if you ever took a picture in the world, not just the United States, you were a customer of Kodak. And Kodak was really interesting because they got so much hubris that they were like, we're such a massive company, we have a monopoly, we don't have to worry about anything. And then inside Kodak, there was this one guy, and he came up with this idea, and he said, you know what, instead of using this film, what if we put the pictures on a digital chip, on a computer chip? And this was back in the 70s, no one ever heard of this. And he presented it to the guys at Kodak, and they laughed at him. And they said, no one's ever gonna use a computer chip when they could use film. And film's been so instilled in people for 100, 200 years, or whatever it is, no one's ever gonna give up film. And what people don't realize is Kodak actually invented the first digital camera. And the digital camera became their downfall. That made them go bankrupt because they didn't embrace that technology. Where they could have had that technology, licensed it to everyone, and they would have been bigger than Google, bigger than Facebook, they would have been bigger than anybody, because every iPhone would have paid a licensing fee to Kodak for that camera. So that's why I think you always have to be aware of what's going on. And with the world changing so much with AI, the real opportunity is always going to be is when one industry is leaving, there's going to be a new industry coming, and it could be even bigger. So I think now's a great time for business, and to start a business, and to do a business, because we have so much change. Because when things are stale, it's good for the people that are in business. But for the people starting business, it's not good because you're at a competitive disadvantage. But when things are changing, that's when little guys like us can come in and get our little bite of the apple. So now's a great time for it.
I have a question.
If you could share some of the elements that are still missing in South Florida to go to that next level, as an ecosystem for technology.
Well, I think, I think what people don't realize is we have an astronomical amount of money down here. I mean, crazy. I mean, we have more billionaires here than, I think anywhere almost. So the money's there, the investment potential is there, but getting back to what I said, if you don't have that specialized expertise on how to execute and how to scale a business and grow the business versus managing the business. In South Florida, we have a ton of tremendous managers. I mean, there's a plethora of tremendous managers that know how to manage a business and just keep it going. But if you look at how many guys in South Florida really started multiple businesses that became successful, I think of Wayne Heisinger. I think of Waste Management, I think of Blockbuster, I think of AutoNation. I mean, he's done it so many times, and he has that specialized skill set. But how many other guys have actually done that? Maybe a couple, maybe there's a few, but most of the guys have specialized knowledge, like in one industry where, they had some advantage to start with or something along those lines, where they can't really add enough value to the young entrepreneurs to help them navigate to get to the point where they need to go. So I think that's the biggest void.
But to fill that void, that's gonna take 5, 10 years. That's not a quick void to fill.
It's not, but I also think that one of the challenges that we have that we maybe don't do too well is we have a lot of retired executives here in South Florida because of tax reasons, homestead, things like that have built multiple companies and have been super successful. A lot of guys from New York come down here and make this their residence, and I'm friends with them. And the challenge is these guys have a lot of time on their hands, but no one ever reaches out to them and say, hey, are you willing to do this? Are you willing to give back? Are you willing to help these companies? So I think the outreach that we're doing, definitely is an area that we can improve. And I think people just get so excited while the company's starting, but we have guys that are super intelligent, super experienced, that if we could just pull them in, to here even, it would help tremendously. Guys that have accomplished much, much more than myself even, they should be the ones involved, so we should put more emphasis on bringing those guys into the mix versus just trying to start as many companies as possible. Because that's where I think we're getting hurt. We're starting too many companies without enough specialized infrastructure to help those companies grow and mature.
That's why we're dead last, second to dead last in scale.
Did read your article in regards to the 5 golden rules.
Okay. What'd you think?
Loved it. Right on the money. Well, here was the funny insight out of it. On the bottom of it, you had 98 comments.
Right.
And every 98 comment was, every single one was, oh, I do all 5. I do all 5.
Exactly.
I do all 5. So,
Exactly.
everybody's here to listening.
Exactly.
How do we, obviously, you only invested in 2 of those businesses that fit that criteria.
Right.
How do we kind of cut through if you honestly feel we fit that 5 criteria to actually get information in front of you to where you can make an evaluation, because ultimately those other 98 are still in the bottom of the comment section.
I mean, just email me, it has to be, ironclad that you have a sustainable competitive advantage. It can't be like, well, we think we do, or we might. That's super important. The barriers to entry one, I'd probably have the most flexibility, because it's tough to have, complete barriers to entry. But the third one being a disruptive service or product, it has to be. It just has to be, because when you're starting, you're at a disadvantage. There's just no 2 ways about it. So if yours isn't like so superior that you could see it within a matter of seconds, it's gonna be hard, and then, the liquidity one and the scale one, most people kind of get number 4 basically, and then number 5, I'm pretty lax with those. I kind of give people number 5 with the management, because usually they have some experience in that vertical. So it's really number 1 and number 3 where most people falter.
Okay.
Is what we see.
So, email.
Yeah, just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Email, yeah.
Any example of a business that fit those the golden rules and you went ahead with the short example?
The patents is the first one that comes to mind for sustainable competitive advantage. You could also kind of say, my family just came back from Las Vegas. It's like saying, okay, I'm doing a deal with the Wynn Resort, and I'm gonna have the only restaurant in the casino, the whole hotel. That's a sustainable competitive advantage. You're gonna serve a lot of meals. You're gonna do a lot of business because you're the only one there. Having the only golf course in Las Vegas. If someone wants to play golf, they have to come to you. That's a sustainable competitive advantage. A lot of times I have friends in the car business, and they're like, Lou, we always try to buy whatever brand that we're in for that entire market. So if they're in Toyota, they'll try to buy all the Toyota stores for Fort Lauderdale. And I asked him, why do you try to do it? Why don't you go to Palm Beach? Why don't you go to Miami? And he goes, no, because we want to have such a competitive advantage that we can control the price. When anyone buys a Toyota, they have to come to us. Wow. That's a sustainable competitive advantage. So it really, it just depends on the industry. Technology